It is, I hope that it's been really good for you this morning just to be in the presence of other people who are pursuing, or at least mostly pursuing, the same Christ, the same God that you are coming in here to pursue and to worship. And we want to remember when we come in here that we don't come in here to worship us. We don't come in here to worship Monroe City Church of God. We come in here to worship the one and only God. And over the past several weeks, we've been jumping into Matthew chapter 5, and we've been looking at some words that God left behind for us when, about 2,000 years ago, he went up on a mountainside and he began to share with people what it means to be blessed. He began to share with people what it means to follow him, what it means to be one of his people. And he shared all these things with us that really, truly, we didn't want to hear, and we still don't want to hear, because we think that they're so opposite of what it is that we really want to have and what we think that we should have. And so we have a tendency to try and change what they mean a little bit, or we have a tendency just not to pay attention to what they have to say. But as followers of him, we want to make sure that we really dig in and say, what is it that he told us? What is it that he continues to tell us? Not what do we want him to tell us, not what have we always understood that he's told us, but what did he actually and what does he actually tell us? So we've been digging into this, like I said, in Matthew chapter 5, into this thing called the Sermon on the Mount, or what we titled the Sermon on the Mount. And we've been looking at all these backwards, upside down ideas, however you want to say it, of the things that Jesus taught us. Things like that we're blessed when we're broken. Things like we're blessed when we mourn. Things like we're blessed when we seek justice, and we talked last week about how, no, we like that one until we stop and we understand what he meant by justice, and that it wasn't the kind of justice that we often think about. That there's all these different backwards ideas of what it means to be blessed, because we're so often, like the conversations we have are, you're blessed when you have a lot of stuff. And you're blessed when you have a lot of notoriety, not when you're humble. You're blessed when everybody looks at you. You're blessed when you have more followers on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever it is that you use, than your friend does or your neighbor does. That you're blessed when everybody's looking at you and they care about what you say. That's when you know that you are truly a blessed individual. And then we run along these words of Jesus, and he seems to put it all upside down over and over and over again. So we get to the point that as we read his words, we should start getting to that point of, as we read them, we stop just trying to take them at the face value of what it means in 2021 English language translation, and we really go, what did he mean when he said this? Because really, if you look at it, his followers were back there. They were with him. They were speaking the same language. They were living in the same culture, and they still missed it half the time because they tried to take it at face value as to what it is that he was saying. We've recently gotten into the show The Chosen. Does anyone in here watch that one? A couple of people. I was introduced to it because my brother, who came here and spoke a while back, he informed me that his wife is just obsessed with the show. She's one of those that she is waiting for the next episode to drop. If you don't know what The Chosen is, it's a show that's following along with the disciples and kind of what it looked like for them to be followers of Jesus. We've had a lot of shows and movies over the years that focus on Jesus, which we should, but we don't have a lot that kind of show what those disciples, those early followers, what they would have been going through, and how often they just didn't get it at all. I love how the show kind of digs into this relationship that there would have been between someone like Peter, who is this zealot, this really enthusiastic, aggressive person, and then Matthew, who was this traitor, the tax collector to the Jewish people, and how, we like to read the story at face value and be like, man, these 12 disciples, they just got along so great. But the reality is, if we really stop and we put ourselves into the culture that they would have been living in, they would have constantly had moments where they struggled with one another, where they didn't like one another, where the past of Matthew and the past of Peter clashed together once again, And Jesus had to sit here once again. In fact, we see several examples of this where they're arguing as they're walking along the road, and they're arguing about who's the greatest among them. And Jesus kind of turns around and he's like, again? I have to walk through this with you again? This isn't about you. Stop making it about you. At one point, Jesus looks at his followers and he says, how long do I have to be with you? How many times do I have to tell you? And 2,000 years later, I wonder, well, I don't really wonder because I'm pretty sure that it's probably the case that Jesus still has those moments where he sits there and he goes, how many times do I have to tell you? How many times do I have to clear this up for you? I've sent person after person to help you clear this up. I've told you myself time and time again how to clear this up. I wonder how many times Jesus has looked at me and he's like, Justin, seriously? You're a pastor, for crying out loud. How many times do I have to make you preach on this so that you will figure this out? I think he does that with us all the time. So this morning, we're going to dig into yet another one of those instances where I think he's been sitting here and he's been saying, how many times do I have to remind you what this means? The beauty of it is that while if you're reading through it, it's pretty easy to have his tone be kind of like this, oh my goodness, here we go again. And I think there was a little bit of that, but fortunately, he is also incredibly patient with us. Like over-the-top patient, like better than grandma patience, like just super patience with us. So we get to Matthew chapter 5, if you want to open up there. And we're looking at this, and we've been reading along. We've looked at the blessed are the broken, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who are humble, who hunger and thirst. And we get down here to Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. And it says, God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. Now, in some translations, you read that, and it actually says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. That our mission statement at Highland Park in Casper, Wyoming, where I came from, where Sarah and I came from, was that we are taking risks to pursue God and love like Jesus. And so we in the youth area, because we wanted our mission statement in the youth to not be one of those youth mission statements that doesn't really have anything to do with the church at large. That's why I love, so I'm repping our student ministry shirt right here, but Dara on the back of it, if you haven't seen these yet, it says part of the whole. That the youth ministry is not like this separate ministry over here, but it's part of the ministry of the entire church. And when I say church, I don't even mean just Monroe City Church. I mean the capital C church. The youth ministry is a part of that. So we as a youth ministry, we didn't want to create this mission statement that was totally separate from anything else. So we took it a little bit different and we youthified it a little bit. But our mission statement in the youth ministry area became that we are risk takers, God chasers, and peacemakers. Mostly because as we were going along with it and we were taking the taking risks, well, risk takers, that one works really well. You know, to pursue God, God chasers, that works really well. Love like Jesus, we don't want to say love makers, so let's put peacemakers on here instead. So what does it mean, though, when Jesus comes along and he's giving this teaching and he says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be children of God. I think there's three different types of people that we tend to put into this and that we tend to get confused by this. I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to write peace at the top, and then these other three put peace in there, and you'll see how this works. But we have the peacekeepers, and we have the peacemakers, and then we have the peace breakers. That I think most people in some way or another fall into one of those three categories, and we try and use, oh man, you guys could have told me that I was dragging that all over the place. Thanks a lot. I've already busted one of these because I stepped on them. So anyway, I think we all like to interpret this Matthew chapter 5, verse 9, and put it into one of these different categories, and we find other scriptures to back it up and everything, but let's take just a little bit of a look as to what these are. Because a lot of people, they fall into this peacekeeper category. The peacekeeper category are those who, they don't want to make waves. They don't want to be the reason that, well, let's put it, they don't like to make the decision as to where to go eat because somebody else might not like the place that they chose, and now that person that didn't get to choose isn't at peace with the decision that you made, and so there's this internal battle going on all the time of, I want to make everybody happy. They're the people pleasers. If I can't make everyone happy, then I feel like I'm letting everybody down instead. They're the people who are, when conflict comes along, they run, they hightail it, they get out of there. Probably should put from into there. I was telling Dan earlier that I'm getting more and more of an appreciation for what teachers feel like, to where they have to talk and write at the same time and not get so far behind in their talking that they're just all this silence. But they run from conflict. If there's even a little bit of people doing this, they're like, whoops, see you later. I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna hide for a little bit. You guys work all that out. Oh, you're upset with me. What can I do? What can I do to make you feel better? I will do anything. This is, in many ways, this is the area that we're constantly taught that this is what we need to be. Everyone goes along to get along. Anybody can do whatever they want to do. Anybody can believe whatever they want to be. Anybody can be whatever they want to be. It's not our spot. We love to throw out it's not our place to judge, and so therefore it's our place to keep the peace with everybody. In fact, Paul even tells us in Romans, I believe it is, I might have just lost the passage there, but Paul tells us that as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everybody. And so we translate that to mean, as far as it depends on you, make sure that you get along with everybody. Now, never mind that it does say in there, as far as it depends on you, which means it's not always going to work. You're not always going to get along with everybody, but don't let you be the reason that you don't get along. And so we take that as then everybody gets to do whatever they want to do and believe whatever they want to believe. And then we have over here, way on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the peace breakers. These are the ones that they're not running from conflict. Man, they are stirring up conflict, and they absolutely love it. I will be completely honest with you. This is what I get accused of being a whole lot more than I get accused of being this. That people think that I love stirring up conflict, and to some extent I do. When I lived in Casper, Wyoming, and everybody was a Denver Bronco fan, and the Chiefs were going to the Super Bowl, I will stir that pot all day long. Now that I live out here in Indy Colts country, and you gave away your first-round pick for Carson Wentz, and he's doing nothing for you, I'm going to stir that pot all day long. Of course, you can come back at me and be like, man, Patrick Mahomes seems to be throwing more, passes to the other team than he does to your own team. So it can all come back, and we'll keep stirring that pot all day long. But with more serious things, these are the people that we see him on social media all the time. We see him on the news all the time. We sit down at a meal, and you see them all the time. They're the ones that they're just waiting for that moment to get some people fighting and arguing because it makes them excited. It's like, man, here we go. This is how it's going to be. They don't want everybody happy. They want everybody fighting with one another. Because in their mind, you truly actually get somewhere when you're butting heads with one another. If everyone's just over here like, oh, it's all good, we all love each other, we don't get anywhere with that. When we get somewhere? When we argue about every little thing that comes along. Ben, you shouldn't have that much corn in your bin. It's too much corn for your bin. Put it over here instead. Go sell it over here. Mike, you don't farm the right way. We want to fight over everything, and we're going to come back at each other all the time. We don't run from the conflict, we stir it up. We love the waves. But here in the middle area, and I wouldn't say that it's a compromise between these two, That it's the middle ground that we have to run. I think we use that word way too much. I think we use this idea that followers of Jesus, that people in general, you just have to find the middle ground. It's a little bit of this and it's a little bit of that. I think it's something completely different. When Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers, they're not the people who stir up conflict. They're not the people who run from the conflict, but they're the people who embrace the conflict. And when I say embrace, I don't necessarily mean that they sit there and they're like, oh man, I didn't bring this up, but this feels good. Like right now, I'm really enjoying life because we've got some. No, I'm not saying they embrace it like that, but they understand that sometimes for things to grow, that sometimes for us to move ahead, for us to get to the point where we at least understand one another, we have to go through a little bit of pain. And there's going to be a little bit of conflict. I've told you guys a little bit about my relationship with my father. And, you know, when I was younger, my dad and I, there was a whole lot of button heads. And now I look forward to every year going on our motorcycle ride with just the two of us. We had to go through a lot of this so that we could get to a point where we could actually be on the same page. Now, I love the phrase that I heard from a parent one time, that my job is not to be the peacekeeper, the buddy-buddy with my kid. My job is to raise my kid so that one day I'll want to be their buddy. And that means we're going to have to embrace a little bit of conflict. And we're going to have to live in that area of a little bit of tension. We can't just run from it every time it comes along. But more than that, because that's where we tend to stay when it comes to this peacemaking idea, is that, well, we have to lean into the conflict sometimes. And, you know, we have to speak the truth in love. And many times we take that one and we say, well, you know, it's speak the truth and the love part comes later, or it's, no, those are together, those are equal. It's not a truth and then love, or a love and then truth. It's a truth in love type of a thing going on here. But in order to be peacemakers, what we're really doing is we're taking it back to what he had said and what we have just a few verses earlier. I don't know if Jesus actually stood up there and said, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is, and blessed are those who, pursue justice, and he just kept going right on through, like point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or if he said, blessed are the peacemakers, and then he spent a little bit of time talking about it, and then blessed are, and then he spent a little, I don't know how he did that part. For us, it's a couple verses. For them, it might have been a couple paragraphs. I don't know. But to really make peace in people's lives, what it means we're doing is we're helping them get right with Jesus. And I know we hear that and we read that and we go, oh, there it is. It comes back to Jesus. Yes! It comes back to Jesus every single time. Last week we talked about this idea. I'm going to make some more room for myself. I'm assuming you all got that. Last week we talked about this idea of mishpat. This idea of justice, and justice not being about people getting what they deserve, but the justice that we're seeking, that we're pursuing, is getting people back in a right relationship with Jesus, which means us understanding that each individual who walks on this earth is an image bearer of God, and therefore as an image bearer of God, we treat them with the dignity that comes with that and what they deserve as far as that goes. And this ties directly into this. That as we seek justice, we become peacemakers. Peacemakers, when he's talking here in Matthew chapter 5, isn't just about everybody getting along. And, the old joke or stereotype that it always was for the I'm blanking on what they call it, the Miss Universe or the Miss America or whatever it is, pageants that they have, where it was always like, I wish for world peace. We would hear that all the time. Like, it's not that we're going for, because there will not be perfect world peace until we are in the new earth. And things have been taken back to how they were when it all started out. When we were walking with Jesus step for step in the garden. But that doesn't mean that we sit here and go, well, it's not going to happen until that day, so I'm not even going to try. At the beginning of this year, we told you that our theme for the year was going to be this idea of restoration. That Paul wrote to the church in Corinth that we have this ministry of reconciliation, of restoration. That ministry of restoration is to be peacemakers. That's what this is all about. This isn't about making sure that everybody gets along, and this isn't to make sure that everybody likes each other, because the truth is, when we get to the point that we are all in a right relationship with Christ, we will be in a right relationship with one another. And there will be peace. Now you might ask the question, well then shouldn't there be peace in the church? There should. But the truth is, and when I say the we on this one, I'm throwing me into this one, so don't think that I'm saying we as in all of you need to figure this out. We are not in perfect relationship with Jesus Christ. We're in relationship with him, but we're constantly, hopefully, if you're growing in your faith, and this is true for you, we are growing in our relationship with him. And the more we understand that relationship, the closer we will be to living in peace with one another. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who lead others into a right relationship with me. That's what Jesus was telling them. For they will be children of God. As you get them right with me, as you lead them, I should say, as you lead them, not as you get them, because it's not our job to get them right with Jesus. It's our job to show them what that means. It's our job to point them in the direction, but it's going to be between the two of them for it to get to that spot. But as you lead them towards me, you are helping make peace in their life. And you are making peace in your life. And you are making peace in the relationship between the two of us. Jesus came and he made peace in the world available through the sacrifice of himself. I want to make sure you get that. Jesus came along and he became a peacemaker by sacrificing himself. That's a C, not an R. You ever get up in front of people, teachers, and you're like, I suddenly forgot how to spell a word? Anybody? Any teachers ever do that? Okay, good, that makes me feel better. And then you stall for a little bit so you can figure out how to spell the word sacrificing. Jesus made peace by sacrificing himself. We are supposed to be peacemakers, and we are supposed to do it by following the example of Jesus. So guess what that means? That means we lay down ourselves for others to be peacemakers. As we do this, we remember what we've talked about through the course of this series, through the course of this conversation. We don't do this to glorify ourselves. We don't do this to make Monroe City Church of God look good. As we do this, as we believe these words and we lean into these words, that blessed are the humble, blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the broken, blessed are those who seek righteousness or justice, blessed are those who are merciful, Blessed are those who are peacemakers. We do all of it so that Christ would be magnified. Because we know that at that point, we're no longer the peace breakers. We're not the peacekeepers, but we're the peacemakers that he's called us to be. I've seen a lot of different people in a lot of different areas throughout the course of my life. I would say, if I'm being honest, too often I fall into this category. I know I erased it, but I rarely fall into this one. But I can think of a lot of people who do. That they hear that there's going to be some difficulty. There's going to be some sacrifice. Like, I'm out. I can't do this. But I've also seen some people who are incredible at being peacemakers. That they're willing to embrace the conflict. And they are all about getting people right with Jesus. Not by going out on the street corner and yelling at them and telling them that they're wrong and telling them that they're sinners and they're going to hell. No, that's this. What that does is that just gets them mad at us. That doesn't point them to Jesus. That just makes them look at Christians and be like, y'all are stupid. And now all of a sudden the attention is off Jesus and it's on us. But man, if we can fall into this category and be peacemakers, the truth is we'll be blessed and Christ will be magnified. So this past week, we went to a conference down in Nashville, a worship conference. As Daryl and Dee and Courtney and myself were able to go down to this and walk through just a lot of different things. I won't even go into all the different areas that they talked about, but there were some words spoken in the very first session where the former lead singer of 10th Avenue North came out and he shared with us. And he kind of walked us through his story. And I don't know how many of you ever listened to 10th Avenue North. I mean, they weren't ever a band that I listened to much. Came across them every now and then. But touring for years and years and years, and then 2019, 2020 came along, and he began to have a conversation with his wife about what the future was going to look like. And he got to this point where he had to actually go to his wife, and well, I should say she came to him, and she was just talking to him about how much he just was on the move all the time. Just go, 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 go. He's got kids, he's got a family at home, and he's a touring artist. And that takes a lot out of your life. It takes a lot out of your time. So he was always on the go, and she started talking to him about just taking a step back. And during 2020, he had started up this podcast. He had done several other things just to kind of really occupy his time because, well, they weren't touring. But it was actually supposed to be, in 2020, their farewell tour for 10th Avenue North. Because in 2019, as his wife was having this conversation with him and they were really digging in, he asked her, so are you wanting me to quit? Honestly, he was at that point where he's like, if she says yes, I'm okay with that, but I want to know what she really wants. And her response was, no, I don't want you to quit. I just think you need to take a break. And so he went and he began to talk to his band about it and everything. And he said one by one, as he's talking to these band members, and he's saying, hey, I just need to take a step back. I need to take a break. They all went, oh, we are so glad that you said that, because I feel like I need to quit. And all of a sudden, he had no band. Like 10th Avenue North just kind of fell apart and disbanded, and it wasn't because they didn't get along with each other. It wasn't because they didn't love what they did. It was because they all had felt this impression upon them that this life that they were living, which is very much a look at me kind of a lifestyle, was just not the kind of lifestyle that they were supposed to be living anymore. It wasn't the calling that they were supposed to have anymore, but it was all they knew. And it was, if we're being real here, it was filling up their checking accounts. It was giving them some of the comforts that they wanted in life. But they all had this impression on their hearts of, you're not supposed to do this anymore. And they just weren't able to say those words because they couldn't give up all that they had. And they also knew that if we do this, we're not going to have this with each other anymore either. And I don't want to let you down, and I don't want to let, the electric guitar player is saying, I don't want to let the bass player down, and the bass player is saying, I don't want to let the drummer down. And so they're all just continuing to tour and to do this thing together, when in their hearts they're all going, I think God's telling me that I'm supposed to stop, but I can't stop because I've got too many people counting on me, and I've gotten used to this lifestyle, so I just got to keep going with this, even though I know I'm not supposed to do it anymore. Until he was wise, and he listened to his wife, and he had a conversation, and all of a sudden, 2020 became their farewell tour, and then COVID came along, and it became their canceled tour. Not canceled in the way that we typically use the word canceled anymore, like literally their shows were canceled because of COVID. And they're just gone. And the beautiful part of it is, as we were listening to him speak, there didn't seem to be this part of him that was like, I really, really miss it. And I really feel like we made a mistake and we were supposed to keep doing it. But you know what he seemed to have? Peace. Because his relationship with Jesus had gone to where it was supposed to be. His relationship with Jesus had gone to a place of complete surrender. Of I'm no longer trying to live through the comforts of the world. I'm no longer trying to live this lifestyle of look at me and look at all that I'm doing. But instead, I've gotten to that point where, for years he'd been saying it on the platform. And he was finally to the point where he was living out what he'd been telling people the whole time, which is to let it go. And when you know that God is telling you something different, do it. Again, going back to the show that we've been watching, The Chosen, you see Jesus come along and one by one come up to these followers in the life that they're living. And you can read it in your gospel accounts where he comes up to them and he says, hey, follow me. So easy to read in those gospel accounts and be like, well, yeah, that would be super easy. But no, these men and women, they left behind. I say women, we look at it like, wait a second, the 12 disciples were all men. There were more than 12. We just talk about those 12 all the time. But as he looks at them and he says, follow me. Some of them are in a boat doing the only thing that they know how to do, trying to provide for their families, and they drop the nets and they follow him. We read it and it's like, wow, that was so easy for them. Stop and think about what it is that they were leaving behind. Now, you may look at it and be like, I would hate to be a fisherman, so that would be easy for me. Leaving behind everything they knew, everything they were good at, and listening to this guy who came along and said, follow me. And they did it. And Jesus tells us over and over again, hey, to be blessed, follow me. To have your life full of peace, follow me. I wonder, shoot, he's not here this morning. Did you tell him what I was going to do? I was going to call up our local dentist and interview him real quick. But apparently God told him I was going to interview him this morning, and so he's not here. As a dentist, I would love to hear him tell us this, but I think I can kind of assume what he would have said here. As a dentist, you know what people need to do with their teeth. You know that flossing is good for them. You know that brushing 2 to 3 times a day is good for them. You know that, wearing a mouth guard as they grind their teeth is good for them. They wear that at night. But as a dentist, you know that most people are going to come into your office and you're going to tell them all these instructions and they're going to look at you and be like, oh, yeah, I'll try harder this year. And they're going to go home and they're not going to do a single thing about it. I was reading a pastor's account of his trip to the dentist recently, and he said he walked into the dentist and he just sat down in the chair and he looked at her and he said, okay, I just need to tell you up front, I know that you're going to tell me I need to floss my teeth. I'm not going to do it. I know that you're going to tell me that I need to brush my teeth 3 times a day. I will promise you I will brush them once. Maybe twice if I'm having a good day, but 3 times, that's ridiculous. I know that I need to wear a mouth guard at night, but I tried that one time and I choked on my spit, and I'm not putting one of those things back in my mouth ever again, so don't even try. I'm in here so that you can clean my teeth. I will be back in here in 6 months so that you can do it again. Please don't give me any instructions because I'm not going to listen anyway, and you're just going to waste our time. Like, how refreshing would it be if people were just that honest all the time and we didn't have to waste our time? But I wonder how many times we look at Jesus and we say the same thing. It's like we sit here and we go, I know that Jesus knows better than I do, but I'm going to do my own thing anyway. I know that Jesus is saying, hey, you will be blessed if you do this. Like, not just I want you to follow rules, but you will be blessed if you do this. And we're sitting here and we're like, I know that he knows better than I do, but I'm going to live like I know better because secretly, I actually think that I know better. I can't say that because I'm in church. But secretly, I think I know better than the creator of everything. He might have put my body together, but I know more than he does about my body. I can just take a pill for that and it'll be fine. So many times we hear his instruction and all he's really trying to say is if you will just surrender, then you'll have a better life than you could ever imagine trying to do it your way. And that's what he was doing as he was standing on that mountainside. He was trying to get through to people, you will have a better life. I'm not trying to give you a bunch of rules. I'm trying to give you a better life. You might think that you have a good life or you can have a good life, but I'm here to tell you, I created this whole thing in the world, in the first place. I love a line from The Chosen where they're talking about which scroll he's going to read, and he chooses the one out of Genesis chapter 1. He says, oh yeah, that was one of my favorite memories. Not one of my favorite stories I read about. That was one of my favorite memories when this whole thing was created in the first place. I want you to have a better life. But what you need to do is surrender. We started off the morning playing a game, which it had multiple reasons behind it. 1, I wanted Dara to be up in front of you. 2, I wanted us to recognize that it's okay to play games in church sometimes. But 3, I wanted you to end like this. When we come to Jesus, and we come to him like this, we say, I'm not here to hold anything back. It's really hard to hold on to something with your hands open like this. I mean, you might be able to balance something on your palms, but it's hard to hold on to something with your hands like this. And we come to him and we say, I come to you not holding anything back. I believe that if we will come in here on a Sunday morning and we will come into this moment of worship together, shouldn't be your only moment of worship throughout the week, but if we come to him like this, then this moment in here is no longer about me. This moment in here is no longer about whether or not I'm going to leave here feeling satisfied, no longer about whether or not I'm going to leave here feeling like that was a service meant just for me. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, Jesus, I'm not going to hold anything back from you. For me, going back to that guy from 10th Avenue North as he's sharing, he's talking about how his prayer has changed as he goes up in front of people. That it used to be for so long, it was a, God, use me as I go out here and I share with these people. And his prayer now is, God, Whether you use me or not, just do something here today. I don't care if it's through the bass player, the song leader, the speaker, the greeter out in front, the person running slides in the back. I don't care how you do it. God, just do something today. And if you want to use me, my hands are open and I'm ready. And here's the beautiful part of this. When you will come here and you will go other places with this mentality for Jesus, when you will go places and say, I surrender everything to you, I hold nothing back from you, the next thing you know, your hands are going to be full of what he gives back to you. And it's going to be so much better than what it was that you were holding on to before. We stumbled across a new song while we were there. Yes, believe it or not, we found a new song. But what I would invite you to do during this song, some of you might know it, some of you might not. If you want to stand to your feet, stand to your feet. If you want to sit, sit. If you want to come up here to the altars, they're always open. But just put your hands out. As Dara would say, order up. And the order up is, God, I'm giving it all to you. I'm holding nothing back. And as we go through this song, explore your heart. Invite God to explore your heart. The psalmist says, search me, O God, and know my inmost thoughts. And ask him to point out to you any area that you may be holding back from him. Because if you truly would like to have a blessed life, you're going to have to let it go. And he's going to fill it up with something so much better.